I just, for me, I just want to play, and I'm going to play the same. I'm going to emotionally, I'm going to put the same amount of effort into a show in front of 5,000 or 5 people.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
as I would 50,000. You know what I mean? And it,
Mhm.
you have, for me, I have to. It's like there's no other way to do it. I approach every gig as if it's going to be my last, because it very well could be.
Yeah.
And so for me, like I don't want to be standing at the gates of heaven and have somebody look at me and go, man, you know, you really screwed up that last gig. Man, I know. I wish. I don't want to do that.
Right. Right.
Try to walk away from every gig having learned something,
Mm-hmm.
and then also having felt confident that I did my best. You know? So, but yeah, there's no cumulative number that I've been keeping up with. I just don't keep up with that stuff, man.
Okay, so with that in mind, obviously you're playing stadiums and Fenway Park and these big, massive festivals.
Yeah.
So was there ever a time, or does it still happen? Because it happens to everybody with any type of like performance anxiety, or we all get nervous, and sometimes it's a good nervous. Personally, I experience that, whether it's for one person, 100 people, 1,000 people. It makes me kind of feel like I'm alive and I'm jazzed up and excited to play. It's inspirational in itself. But have you ever had any type of performance anxiety? When you're kind of coming up and now you're playing in these massive venues.
Well, you know what? It's okay. I get more nervous in front of 5 people in a bar.
Okay.
I would in front of 50,000 people at a stadium. And the reason why is, or at least I know, that those 5 people in the bar are very intently listening. So to me, that's a much higher, kind of sense of pressure. I always tend to get a little nervous if I know that one of my drumming heroes is in the audience.
Okay.
So if there's someone in the audience that or other musicians for that matter, regardless of what they play. But if I know they're in the audience, I'm gonna feel a little kind of edgy, know. But I don't let it get to me too much, because it is kind of a nervous, like an exciting kind of nervous thing.
Yeah.
But how I get around it is, I just think, okay, why am I nervous? Do I have a reason to be nervous? Does it really matter? It's going to be what it's going to be.
Back to kind of what you were just speaking about. I mean,
yeah. And if things go great, they go great. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah, you're not performing, open heart surgery on somebody.
Right. I mean, we just recently, we did a show we were in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And before the show, Danny Reyes, who plays percussion in the band, he comes walking through and he's got Russ McKinnon.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are not familiar with Russ, he did a stint with Tower of Power back in the 90s. And he's, educated in North Texas State. He's a really, really incredible musician.
Yes, he is.
And a really great drummer, very creative and always very appropriate.
Barry Manilow.
He plays for Barry Manilow. It's very true. And so the guy definitely knows the difference between a good drummer and a bad drummer.
Right.
Walking through, and I'm like, oh my God, you're Russ McKinnon. And we talked for a little bit, and for a bit I was a little nervous, going up on stage. I was like, oh man, it's Russ McKinnon. Like, this guy's a great drummer, and I respect his playing. And then I thought, well, hey, you know what? The gig's going to be what it's going to be. And at the end of the night, I kind of felt that things were a little looser than they should have been, that I could have done better. But we exchanged some emails a couple of days later, and he was like, oh man, I really enjoyed the performance. It was great. And so, it is what.
Right.
It was.
You told me, I think it was a year or so ago, and this maybe you just touch on your feeling when this went down. Was your experience with Ringo?
Oh man. Oh, okay. So there's two parts to the story with Ringo. So when we won our first Grammy, we're up there on the stage, and literally right down in front of me, sitting on the front row, is Ringo Starr, and he
Like make eye contact with him.
I look down, and he's like, hey, yeah, peace and love. And he gives me one of those, right?
Yeah.
So to fast forward a few years, I have a couple of pals that play in his band, and so it just kind of worked out that we go, and my wife and I had bought tickets to the show. We were going to go see the band anyway. And so I had touched base with my pals and said, hey, you guys, we'd love to stop by and say hello to you, and if it's cool. And so they say, yeah, sure. And we go backstage, and we're hanging out and talking, and then I get to meet Ringo, you know what I mean? And so, this is one of my drumming heroes. And Ringo is so kind and so personable and such a gentleman and so very gracious with his time. I just sat in the room and listened to him tell some stories, and it was a beautiful experience. And then he says, hey, you wanna play? And I'm like, that would be, yes, of course, who wouldn't want to?
Right.
So yeah, and he said, well, do you know, with a little help from my friends. So I was like, oh God, yes, of course I know it, And he's like, okay, great. He was, you don't mind using my drums? I was like, oh, no, not at all. Like, holy cow, what a beautiful experience.
Yeah, here comes the anxiety.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so, when the appropriate time came in the night, my wife and I go to the backstage area, and we're standing on the sides, and then I go up and I get behind his drum kit, and I remember looking around the stage, and it took just a second for me but it felt like an eternity,
Mm-hmm.
So there's Greg Bissonette, and a dear friend of mine, an amazing player, and I had his poster on my wall when I was a kid. And then just in front of him is Todd Rundgren, and I had his poster on my wall when I was a kid. And then there's Richard Page, another dear friend, and I had his poster on my wall as a friend. And then there's Ringo. Of course, I had several of his posters on my wall, still do. And then there's Steve Lukather from Toto, and I had his poster on my wall.
Super band.
Like Broly from, he Santana, and like one of the founding members of Journey. And I had his poster on my wall, and I'm just looking around going, oh my goodness, how did I wind up here? And I look down and I'm like, oh wow, I'm sitting behind Ringo's drums. And then all of a sudden I look over at Greg, and he's like, 1, 2, 3, and we just started playing, you know what I mean? And so I wasn't nervous in terms of like worried about whether or not I was going to screw things up. I was more nervous about like hitting something too hard on Ringo's kit and breaking something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just don't want to. I would never want to be that guy. You know what I mean? That doesn't get invited back because you broke my favorite ride cymbal. You know what I mean?
Right. In one song.
I was just playing quiet, not too quiet, but I was playing at a very appropriate volume. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Ringo has such a beautiful touch, so I was trying my best in my mind, like, I can touch him like Ringo a little bit, like maybe I can play soft but with intent like Ringo does. And it was a lot of fun. And so in a situation like that, yes, I was nervous, but I was more nervous about messing up his gear than I was, up there on stage with all of my, with a bunch of my musical heroes.
Right. You're in a great environment, and, once the downbeat happens, everything goes away, right?
Everything went away. I mean, the 1, 2, 3, 4, and then like boom, like we just started playing, and it was a beautiful, beautiful moment that I feel very blessed to have experienced, and as I said, Ringo is he's such a gentleman and such an amazing player, and he's one of those guys that people don't realize just how incredible of a drummer he is until you start dissecting all of his parts. Some of that early stuff. Ringo's not known for being, a real chops heavy guy, but man, you get into some of that early Beatles stuff, and he was doing some interesting things that are not, Ticket to Ride, there's a drum fill where it's double stops,
Yeah.
and it's like two hands, and then, I can't say enough good things about Ringo Starr. He's amazing.
I always wonder, where those things come from, especially in a band like that, when he's surrounded by this group of musical geniuses, you could say, with Lennon and McCartney. Like how much, and there's been things written about this, but you wonder how much of that influence came from those guys, like we were saying, where you got to wonder if in there Ringo was like, all right, I'm going to play it like this. And John Lennon was like, no, I want this. I want double stops on the drums right there.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those, if you hang out with him, you realize very quickly that he's not interested in displaying chops. He's more interested in playing a groove, and it be fun, and it be about loving the music. And so I can't help but think that perhaps Ringo has always just sort of gravitated towards what's the most appropriate thing to do. From a musical standpoint, he is a musician. He doesn't just hit drums. He's a musician, and he's always been very inventive, in my opinion. Some of the subtlety in his playing just makes all the difference. If you get away from it, it just changes the whole outlook of the song and the whole feel of the song. You really have to kind of, respect that he's always been about playing for the song.
The song, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's fantastic, man. What an experience. Holy cow. I mean,
I'm yes, very blessed to have experienced that.
Yeah.
Amazing thing.
That's awesome. Thank you again for the insight into, the nerves and things, and just
what is it nervous about?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. We as drummers, you kind of have to just let it go and not worry about it, because if a guitar player hits a wrong note, it's going to stand out in a certain way. If a keyboard player hits a wrong note, there are options to get around it. You know what I mean? You go down one note, you know what I mean? So
you go a half step in either direction and you're all right.
Kind of cover up mistakes. If you're a drummer and you screw up really big in the middle of a song, it's really noticeable.
Yeah.
Really noticeable. So that being said, you either have to embrace it and go, well, it is what it is, or you can stress yourself out over always trying to be, perfect. And I just, for me, I don't want that stress. So if it screws up, it screws up,
Yeah.
Hopefully you've spent enough time in the practice room where it doesn't manifest itself on stage during the performance.
Right, or derail, continually.
Right.
Snowball.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do stupid things when I was a kid, because when we all start out, we drop drumsticks and we're playing too hard and too loud. And so I just got to a point where I said, you know what, I better practice dropping a drumstick because it's going to happen. So that's what I did,
Right.
Because I thought, man, nothing's going to derail a song more than dropping a drumstick in the middle of the song. So I figured out these little ways to kind of get around it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I practiced it. I practiced having a drumstick and then having to pick up another one.
That's great advice.
I mean, it's not something you really think about.
No.
But I did. My twisted mind did.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome, man. So, again, the Zac Brown Band, it's this mega machine. I don't even know the right word for it. Unless you've been to a show, can't really understand how epic the show is, and it's just an onslaught in the best term, feeling, visually, orally. It's fantastic. So we work very hard to try to make everything, we want to make the music good, but we also want to make the visual presentation of it equally as good. And it definitely comes through. So that kind of brings me to my next question. You know, to the concert goer,
Yeah.
who's there, they paid their money, they're sitting in their seat, you know, and the lights go down, and then boom, it's just Zach Brown Band for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. They see this perfectly polished, beautiful, pleasing, exciting, inspirational performance that, you know, when they leave the next day or the next year, you know, that's kind of what's imprinted on them,
Right.
which ultimately is the goal for you guys as a band to leave the consumer with that, you know.
Oh,
but
yeah.
if you could give us a little glimpse into kind of how that happens, you know, not, you know,
Yeah.
almost like on a daily kind of basis of tour life, you know, it's not.
Well, so let me just say it this way to start. It is as a result of having an amazing crew that we're able to even put on a show. Without our crew, the show is just literally just a bunch of dudes standing on stage playing some music. So in terms of the visual aspect of the whole thing, we have a really we have a group of guys that travel with us, and we have riggers that climb up in the rafters and help, you know, hang all the lights and the PA, and without those guys, the stuff doesn't get hung. You know what I mean? And we have lighting technicians and audio technicians, and we have a huge video wall behind us, and we have an enormous amount of well, I say enormous. We have a large number of trucks and buses, so we have to get everything. We have to get all the gear to the venue. We have to get all of the people to the venue, and so everyone plays, in my opinion, everyone plays a very distinctive and important role in putting on a show. And we're all pieces of one big machine, and the cogs of the machine have to go together just right. Otherwise, you know, you're missing something. Something might not get done correctly or at all.
Or it could be potentially very dangerous.
It could be, but we have what I consider one of the best crews on planet Earth.
How many people travel with the band?
That's a good question. I'm not sure the exact number, but it's probably on a daily basis, including all of the drivers that drive the trucks and buses. We're probably, gosh, anywhere from 60 to 80.
Wow.
Know? Maybe even more than that. It's kind of tough to keep them all counted. I recognize the faces, but and the names of the guys, and I know them. You know, I try to say hello to everybody every day, but there's a lot of people.
How many trucks?
I think this year we scaled things back just a smidge this year, so I think we're down to like 14 trucks and 8 or 9 buses. It's
amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I can't imagine just the bill for fuel.
It's got to be astronomical.
You know, I know what it costs to put gas in my car every week, and
yeah, but you know, it's every day. It's like these guys get up at like 8 in the morning, and trucks are, you know, backed into the venue, and they start unloading all the gear and they start hanging it all up, and it's a process. You know, you have to get the PA and the lights hung up first, and then you move the stage set piece in place, which has to be built. And then you know, set up all the backline gear, so the drums and the guitar amps and everything, and then we've got our techs that are back there maintaining all that stuff and making sure it's right. And then you have to test the PA, you have to ring it out, you have to tune it to the room, you have to do a sound check and a line check and a lighting check and a video check, and then you got all this stuff that goes on. And so from, you know, roughly about anywhere from 9:30 to 10 o'clock in the morning, all the way up until after showtime, you know, the actual show is just a small portion of the day.
Right.
We probably we probably get everything sort of set up and to a manageable spot by about 2 p.m. every afternoon. And then we can start doing sound check and things like that. And then we do the show. And then after the show, these guys, like, they come in and, you know, they disassemble everything and load it back into the truck. And even that is just, you know, seeing all the trucks come in and out of the loading bays, you know, it's a pretty amazing thing if you can sit back and watch it. It's really incredible. And, you know, then there's the local crews. You know, we have to hire local labor everywhere we go just to help put all this stuff together, to set it up and to take it down. Mm-hmm. And but without those guys, we wouldn't be able to do what we do with the efficiency that we're able to do it. It's like I said, we're all parts of a much larger machine, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I mean, and if anybody is, you know, ever at a, you know, large concert and sticks around and doesn't leave with, you know, the mass of people that, you know, mass exodus from the venue.
Yeah.
Stick around for 20 minutes and just watch what happens.
Oh gosh, that first half hour, there's so much that goes on.
It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so our techs will have all of our backline gear packed up and in the truck in about half an hour. And then you have the set piece coming down and the lighting's all coming down, the PA's coming down.
There's forklifts going everywhere.
And it's like watching, you know, a bunch of little worker ants going back and forth, building an ant bed. It's an amazing thing. And there's no way that, like I said, there's no way that it could happen without everybody in that crew and everybody on the local level at every venue that we go to. Without those guys, like I said, it's just a bunch of dudes standing on a stage making music, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. That's you know, you see the finished product so many times, and you don't realize
it's a lot of work.
What it took to get there. Not even necessarily that day, but you know.
Oh yeah,
6 months ago.
Stadium shows. You know, we've done some baseball stadiums and over the past few years, and that in and of itself. So you have to have the ball team has to be gone, and so you got the groundskeepers that have to kind of say, yeah, you can put this there, you can't put that, because they're trying to protect their ball field, which immensely. But so they have to come in a few days. If there's just one show, they have to come in a few days early, and they have to set everything up, just the basics, you know, the stage itself, and then all of the rigging that's up above it, and then we come in, you know, and fly the PA and the lights and the video, and then after we're gone, it still takes them a couple of days to pack all that stuff up and get it out of there so that they can play ball.
Yeah.
You know?
So that one concert, literally, you know, from start to finish, could be a 4 or 5 day process.
Could be. I mean, you know, I would imagine that, you know, what you would want to do optimally is to, you know, find a stretch where the team's going to be gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, come in, set up the stage, have several concerts right in a row, and then have a few days to tear it down, and then yet another few days to get the grounds back in shape so that they could actually play a good game of baseball out there. You know,
and that
all for that matter.
That happened with you guys at Fenway Park, right? Didn't Billy Joel did a night, or, you know, the rig was up for someone else?
Definitely. That's a smart way to do it. You know, you're having to move it in. You might as well get your money's worth, you know.
Yeah, right.
As long as those guys are kind enough to let us use their house to throw a party, you know.
That's a great way of putting it.
Doing it. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. It's really awesome because if you think about it, like, we're the guest of honor and we get to control the jukebox. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the greatest party ever.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah. So, you know, everybody think about that the next time you're at a concert, you know,
even at a nightclub or
that's true too. It's at every level.
Yeah. It's just, you know, the bigger the venue, the more work has to go into making it happen. I mean, even if you go to a local bar and there's a band from out of town, well, they had to, you know, drive in, they had to move the gear in, they had to set it up, they had to sound check it, and they had to make sure everything was working the way they wanted it to. I mean, that's several hours just to go into, you know, a 1 hour set. And then you got to break it down, you know, you got to break it all down and pack it all back up. So, I mean, there's a lot more work than just showing up and playing, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing.